don't want to be multicolored like a rainbow and look like someone who has got mania or looks like a mad woman. Who are you going to be fishing if you're going to be working in a care home? How are your fishing skills going to improve patient care? So careful, because you don't want to show them a weakness that they can say, we can't work with this person. When I'm stressed, I'll grab my Baileys or my glass of wine. If I have my glass of wine, I'll feel better. Wrong answer. Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, the channel where we keep things real. Today we are going to be getting real about the interviews for nursing in UK. A couple of weeks ago we discussed how to choose the best job offer and how to choose the best contract and the best pay rate. So when you look at your pay rates, we've got different pay rates ranging from £12, £15, £17, £21 an hour. So when you look at pay rates, a £21 per hour job offer is going to have a more complex interview than a £12 an hour job offer. So the interviews can be particularly difficult because the employers want the cream. So those are the best nurses. So they try by all means to decipher crucial information about you. They want to find out your thought processes, your critical thinking skills, as well as your problem solving skills and teamwork. So today I'm going to be giving you tips on how to prepare for an interview, the types of questions asked, and how to approach or how to answer those questions. And I'm also going to give you at least one scenario which is commonly asked and how you can answer it, or what is it that they expect from that scenario. Let's get into it.
Alright, they're asking for the queen. I'm a bad bitch, she's a savage. Look back while I turn. No comparison. I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Hacking, stupid, what was happening? Bitch, what was happening?
So guys, most of the time people come here through agents, and the agents just tell you that we've got interviews with a particular, whether nursing home, whether it's the NHS and stuff like that. So first and foremost, before you even attend your interview, the number one thing that you're supposed to do is to go and do your homework about that company. You need to find out about the company. You need to know their mission statement. You need to know what they are well known for. And you need to know what would really inspire you to go and work for that company. What kind of conditions do they deal with? Do they deal with dementia? Do they deal with nursing? Do they deal with learning disability and stuff like that? You also need to find out what are they well known for. Have they been visited by the CQC or RQIA? What is the report from the RQIA? What awards have they received and things like that? So that when you go for the interviews, most of the time it is the number one question which they ask. Why do you want to join the Popo care homes, for example? The beauty of it is that these days interviews are no longer being done face to face. We are now using Zoom, we are now using WhatsApp calls. So you are not going to be as nervous as you would be when you have people looking at you face to face. When we used to conduct nursing interviews in the hospital where I was working, you discover that in one room you'll be having 8 people interviewing you, and that on its own is just nerve-wracking. So when it comes to the UK interviews, just relax. Nothing nerve-wracking about it. It's just 2 people will be asking you questions. On the day of the interview, normally they say if it's an interview, come in good enough time. For example, 30 minutes before your interview. It still applies even when you are using Zoom calls or WhatsApp calls. You have to be there on time just to calm your nerves if you're nervous. Run through a few things, run through your NMC code, your professional values just before the interviews. And when you're going for your interviews, you have to, it doesn't matter that it's over the computer, you have to be presentable. You don't want a situation whereby when they look at your face or look at you once and then they say, WTF, we can't employ this person. She looks like a crazy person. Crazy hair. You know what I'm saying? You have to look decent. Your hair color, if you're dark skinned like me, make sure that it's black, it's neat, it's presentable. Even the colors that you're wearing, you don't want to be multicolored like a rainbow and look like someone who has got mania or looks like a mad woman. Most of the time, I said the first question which they ask you is why you want to work for their organization. And already you would have researched about the organization, their mission statement, their core values, and when you're answering your question, you are going to be answering the question based on the knowledge that you've already gathered about the organization. This common question which they say, tell us about yourself. Sometimes as an individual, you'll be having 10, 15 qualifications. For example, myself, amongst the qualifications that I have, I'm a pediatric nurse. But if I'm going to be working in an elderly unit, that pediatric nursing is irrelevant to the situation. So I cannot start dwelling on how the peds, how I love dealing with babies, how peds, you understand? When you're telling them about yourself, yes, you tell them about yourself, but you give them answers which are related to the conditions which are within that area. Talk of things which are going to be relevant to whether it's elderly care or it's surgical care or whatever. So you look at your qualifications and factor them into the conditions which are there. And avoid telling them about, I like fishing over the weekend, I like cooking, who are you going to be fishing if you're going to be working in a care home? How are your fishing skills going to improve patient care? So all these other nitty-gritty things about you like swimming, they are not really important. What is important is what you are going to be bringing into the table. Obviously, someone who's going to be talking about fishing and swimming is not likely to get a job compared to someone who's going to be talking about how they worked in a medical ward and how they developed passion towards caring for the elderly people and the certain conditions which they've come across in the wards and how they think they're going to be managing those conditions when they come and work in their care homes. Most of the interviews in UK, they give you scenario questions. And when they give you scenario questions, for example, they can say, as you went to room 15, you discovered that Mr. Smith was on the floor. What would you do in such a situation? When they're giving you scenarios, they want to assess, one, they're assessing your knowledge, they're assessing your critical thinking skills, they're assessing whether you're a good team player, they're assessing whether you know when to escalate, they are assessing whether you are going to be a nurse who is jacked up. So I'm going to answer this scenario just to show you how best you can answer that question if it's asked. So if I go to Mr. Smith's room and I discover that he is on the floor, first of all, I'm going to assess the area whether it's safe for me to approach. Then I immediately ring the call bell whilst I go to Mr. Smith and ask him if he's okay. Already have shown the interviewers that you know that this is an emergency. You're not going to be dealing with the situation by yourself. You have immediately used the call bell to alert everyone else to come to the emergency. Because the tendency is others, they start attending to the patient and everything before they even call for help. So I will approach Mr. Smith. If he's able to talk, I'm going to ask him, are you okay? Are you able to move your limbs? And as soon as one of the staff comes in, I will send them to go and collect an observations trolley whilst I remain with other staff assessing Mr. Smith. I'm going to ask him to perform a full range of motion for the elbows, for the legs, for the knees, and to let me know if there's any pain. So which means you are telling them that before you move your patient, you want to know whether he's got a fracture or not, so that you move them or you don't move them. And you tell them that in the event that the patient says they're not able to move their limb, you do not move them from the floor. You call for help, you leave them on the floor until the paramedics come in. The reason being, sometimes you might move someone and make the situation worse. You might move someone and cause them to be paralyzed. So if Mr. Smith is not able to move any of the limbs, we will not move him from the floor. So if we have done all the safety checks and he's okay, we will assist him to a comfortable position, either in bed or on the chair. We are going to do a total physical examination where we are doing skin checks and assessing for any bruises, for any obvious injuries. Then we are going to carry out a set of observations. Because we did not see Mr. Smith falling, it is going to be deemed as an unwitnessed fall. With all the unwitnessed fall, we assume that someone has had a head injury or has hit their head against the floor. So I am going to commence Mr. Smith on the neurological observations. I'm going to carry out the Glasgow Coma Scale, and the Glasgow Coma Scale, it is graded out of 15. Assess the eye-opening response, which is graded out of 4, the best verbal response, which is graded out of 5, and the best motor response, which is graded out of 6. I'm also going to assess his pupil size. I'm going to check his blood pressure. I'm going to check his BP, temperature, pulse, respirations. I'm also going to assess the power of the legs, whether it's normal power or indicate which leg has got any weaknesses. Another thing which I'm going to take note of is the type of drugs that Mr. Smith is on. For example, if Mr. Smith has had a fall and he is on apixaban, I'll immediately send him to the hospital, because apixaban is a blood thinning drug and it can easily cause a bleed to the brain. After making Mr. Smith comfortable in bed, I'm going to phone out of hours and inform him about the fall. If it's in the evening, or phone the doctor and inform him about the fall. I'll phone the family. I'll complete a DATEX or an incident form. I will update his notes, update his care plans, and update all his risk assessments, update the falls calendar. And from then on, I will commence my neurological observations, quarter hourly for the first hour, half hourly for the next hour, hourly, 2 hourly, and 4 hourly, depending on the condition of Mr. Smith. If there is any change in the neurological observations, for example, if it becomes a 12/15, I'm going to send Mr. Smith to the hospital. So, when you answer your question like that, you have shown your interviewers that you are able to think and manage a situation. You have shown your interviewers that you are a good team player, because when you discovered the incident, you did not manage it on your own. You are able to call your colleagues to come and help you. You have shown your interviewers that you know when you need to escalate. You have shown your interviewers that you know the type of documentation which you're supposed to carry out, and you have shown them that you know whom you're supposed to inform in case there is a fall. If you answer your scenario questions and cover all those areas, then you will nail your interviews. So that is how you answer a scenario question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my description different scenarios. Am I going to do that? I'm going to put in my description the types of scenarios that you can come across in your interviews. So another common question which they ask you, which is quite tricky, they just leave it at, how do you cope with stress? And then you have some people going to the extent of saying, when I'm stressed, I'll grab my Baileys or my glass of wine. If I have my glass of wine, I'll feel better. Wrong answer. Once you involve alcohol in your answer, that is the wrong answer. The simple best answer that you can give is that when it comes to stress, when you are a nurse, having stress at work is inevitable. What I normally do when I'm stressed at work, I just take a step back and do some deep breathing exercises. And another way I manage stress is to admit when I need help. Whenever I need help at work, I go to the other team members and say, I need help here or I need help there. Because at times you get stressed when you feel like you're overwhelmed by certain duties at work. But if you seek help and you work together as a team, you become less stressed. So because we deal with residents, because we deal with patients, sometimes I cannot show my stress out. So even when I'm stressed, I always make it a point that remain calm and focused, even during stressful situations. Other than the scenario questions and asking you questions about your qualifications and how what you are bringing to the table and why you want to work with the organization, the interviewers, they always ask you two particular things. One, they always ask you your weaknesses, and they always ask you if you've got any questions. When they ask you about your weaknesses, you have to be very careful, because you don't want to show them a weakness that they can say, we can't work with this person. So what you have to do, you have to be honest with yourself and find areas where you need personal or professional improvement, or mention an area where you had a weakness but you are slowly but surely getting better at that weakness. For example, you can say, greatest weakness was that I used to pay too much attention to detail to the extent that it ended up delaying me in executing some of my duties. So I met a colleague who helped me on how to organize my work, on how to plan my work, and now I've developed a system of time management, and I now know how to organize my day and plan how I'm going to execute my duties for the day, and I continue to improve on that. They always ask you, do you have any questions to ask? There are questions that you can ask, and there are questions that you should never ask. The kind of questions that you can ask are simple questions like daily duties for this job, or what is going to be the next patient ratio, what kind of shift do you have because shifts differ, simple things like that. And there are questions that you should never ask. For example, questions like, did I get the job? What is your pay rate for overtime? Am I going to be paid for weekends? How long will it take for me to get promoted? Am I going to have a drug test if I pass the interviews? So those kind of questions are questions which we call red flags, because you don't want to give the employer the impression that you are all about money. You are coming here to make money, or you are a drug addict. You don't want to be tested on drugs because they might find traces of drugs in your blood. And so you have to be very careful with the questions that you ask your employer. Just keep them simple and straightforward. Another thing, as you are answering your questions, you have to be confident. You have to show that you know the subject matter. Most of us have been nurses for long, so they are simply asking you everyday nursing questions, and you shouldn't have difficulties in answering those questions. But do not be afraid to stop them and say, I am sorry, I did not understand you. Can you repeat what you said? Sometimes it can be very difficult because in UK we've got so many accents, and sometimes someone can talk from start to finish and you won't hear a single thing. So you really have to be very attentive, because believe me, even when I started working in UK, they would speak to me using the Irish accent, and I'll just smile and nod without hearing anything, because they speak so fast and it's difficult to understand. You will see. Practice makes perfect. So when you are preparing yourself for interviews, make sure that you practice. I'm going to put some of the interview questions in my description, because I didn't want the video to be too long by answering all the interview questions. So I just touched on a few questions, but I'm going to put in my description the types of questions that you might come across and the type of scenarios that you may come across. And when you're doing your interviews, remember to always smile, and at the end, don't forget to say thank you. Yes, it might seem like it's an old-fashioned thing to say, but that's good etiquette for interviews. There's no harm in saying thank you. So guys, these are just a few tips that I have to give you about the interviews. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe, like, share, comment, and hit that notification bell so that you are alerted when I upload